Good afternoon. Thank you for joining this podcast with me. I'm Jaco Brits from Expat Web. I'm a senior consultant. I'm joined by my colleague Aadil Wadee, who is also a senior consultant. Today we'll be discussing the requirements and the process of obtaining a study visa. Aadil, thank you for joining me. Please take me through the eligibility of a study visa.
Thank you, Jaco. Happy to be here once again. I think when it comes to a study visa, eligibility is not extremely limited. It's basically available to any individual who needs to study, whether they are minor or a major, so i.e. an adult. And basically it's for anyone who wants to study at either a primary, a secondary or tertiary institution.
Okay. So a primary, secondary and tertiary institutions, that's including primary school, a creche, high school, universities, colleges.
Definitely.
Any recognized school or college or university in South Africa?
I think you hit the nail on the head with the word recognized. As long as any of these learning or teaching institutions are recognized within the Republic of South Africa, they would qualify as a form of institution whereby you'd be able to register in order to apply for a study visa.
So take me through some of the requirements, the most important requirements, because I know each and every visa application has a long list of requirements and there are basic requirements. What are the most important requirements for a study visa application?
Definitely. I mean, as a general rule of thumb, most visa applications follow the same process flow with regards to the requirements. However, each of them will always have specific requirements tailored to that specific category. In terms of a study visa, if I just think about it off the top of my head, I would say there are two major or very important requirements in order for you to qualify as well as apply for a study visa application. The first that comes to mind is, as we just spoke about the learning institutions, it's that of a letter of acceptance from a registered learning or teaching institution within South Africa. Important to note on this one is that it needs to be acquired prior to you submitting your visa application. Hence, if you do wish to study for or to apply for a study visa, you need to actually find a school that you're willing to attend and then reach out to the school, get a letter of acceptance from the school because that will be included within your study visa application. The second most important requirement, I would say, is that of medical aid cover. I think medical aid cover is a big one. This comes down due to the fact that due to various countries having, I would say, free healthcare systems or better healthcare systems, the need for medical aid is a lot less than within South Africa.
Yeah.
Therefore, a lot of applicants overlook this requirement. However, it's one of the quintessential requirements in order to apply for a study visa. So in order for you to qualify for a study visa, you would have had to apply for a valid medical aid or valid medical aid cover either internationally or within South Africa prior to your application once again.
So that medical aid cover must cover the validity of your visa. Is that correct?
Spot on, yes. It has to cover you for the entire duration that you sojourn in South Africa.
So we just touched on the requirements and the eligibility of the study visa. What is the duration of such a visa?
Well, when it comes to duration, it varies on applicant specific. Reason for this is I can touch on it in two parts. I think the first part which we can touch on is with regards to any applicant who's submitting a study visa in conjunction or alongside their parent. So in this instance, it's when the main applicant in this instance is someone who's coming to South Africa on a valid work visa, for example, a critical skills work visa, and then they want to bring the kids with them and they want the kids to study while they're also here in South Africa. Then, with regards to duration for someone who's applying in that instance, it's twofold again. Basically, it either can be, once it's adjudicated, issued for a period which is in line with the main applicant's visa. Okay. So if they had applied for critical skills and it was issued for 5 years, they would get their study visa for a period of 5 years as well. Or alternatively, it can be for a set period of time as per how long they need to study for. So if they only need to study for 3 years, there's a chance that their study visa will just be issued for 3 years just in order for them to complete their studies.
Okay. Right, so you said the 3-year period. So my child came here while being in grade 9 or 10. They finished their high school career and now they need to progress to university. So can you then submit the change of conditions application in South Africa, or will it be required for the child to return home to submit a new application?
Fantastic question. Long story short, they need to submit a change of conditions within South Africa. So the purpose of a change of conditions is due to the fact that on the issued study visa, it will stipulate under one of the conditions the school which the child is attending. So change of conditions is used, for example, if someone finishes their matric and then now wants to move on to university, we'd have to do a change of conditions because they're now moving learning institutions and they're moving to somewhere else. So the new visa will have to stipulate the university name on the visa. The second time it happens, which is actually a lot more common, which a lot of people don't actually realize, is let's say you applied and there's a school you chose when you were still, for example, in France. You come to South Africa, it's not a school your child is enjoying, you want to move their schools. When you move their schools, it doesn't mean because they still have a valid study visa that they can just move to any school. Basically, what would happen is we'd have to do a change of conditions again, because when they do move schools, even if that previous visa is still valid, we'd have to get a new visa with the new school name on it because it's one of the conditions listed on the visa itself.
Great, thank you for that. So, processing of the visa, so you'll obviously have to submit this application, the first application abroad. Just quickly take us through that process.
So, with regards to submitting abroad, it's more country specific, if that makes sense. So, depending on the country you're submitting in, the process as a whole would change ever so slightly. That comes down to, for example, some countries you're required to make an appointment and pay your fees up front prior to you arriving at the visa center for submission. Other countries prefer that it's done on a walk-in basis, whereby you just attend the center on any given day and you pay your fees at the center and submit your application. With regards to the submission of the application, it's fairly straightforward. So what you have to do is, once you've decided, okay, you're going ahead, you're submitting a study visa, you gather all of the required documents, make sure everything is in order. You then approach the visa center on the day with your compiled application pack of all those required documents. You'll sit with one of the officials there, they'll run through the documents, make sure that everything is there, or if anything's missing, they'll probably advise you thereon. They then accept the application pack from you, and they'll give you, usually they give you an estimated processing time or when you can expect to return back, but then they'll keep you updated because they'll give you a tracking number whereby you can track your application, and once it's ready for collection, you just approach the VFS center again to collect the application.
Right, so you mentioned processing time. What are you seeing currently in processing times for applications submitted abroad?
Processing times is a touchy subject. I mean, once again, it varies. It's country specific. There's some countries which you can submit in and get your visa application extremely fast, and some countries where it takes a very long time to come out. In general, when we're looking at study visa applications abroad, you're looking at around 4 to 6 weeks in order for those visa applications to be processed. That's, I would say, the estimated processing time.
And in South Africa, if you do the change of conditions or renewal, what are the processing times there?
So, with regards to South Africa, I'm sure most people have heard of the backlog and that the Department of Home Affairs is currently facing. Good thing though is, with regards to study visas, it doesn't necessarily form part of the backlog. That's from prior experience. The way I can put this is that they enjoy the same processing time as those of work visas. So, estimated again for the Department of Home Affairs, or if you had submitted in South Africa, it's around 4 weeks as well. So that's more or less what you're looking at.
Right. Right. So let's quickly touch on the change of conditions for an adult. So you were a child when you came to South Africa, you turned 18, and now you apply for a study visa to complete your studies at university. What are the additional requirements to do the change of conditions in South Africa?
Again, fantastic question, because it might be something that's overlooked, as when they arrived in South Africa it wouldn't have been required, but the key point there would be your police clearance certificate. So once you attain the age of majority in South Africa, which means you've now turned 18 or are older than 18. As part of your requirements when doing a change of conditions, you'll be required to submit a police clearance certificate. The police clearance certificate will have to be for any countries you resided in for 12 months or more within the last 5 years. So it's, if, for example, you had come to South Africa and it was just for 5 years of study, so you did grade 8 to grade 12 and then you were completed, then South Africa would be the last place you resided in for 5 years, so you'd have to submit a South African police clearance. If not, then you have to consider which countries you had resided in, and then we'd have to obtain police clearances from all those countries as well.
Okay. And then is there a specific time period, is there a specific time period within when you need to submit this application for change of conditions or renewal?
As a general rule, or as part of the requirements, it states that it needs to be submitted at least 60 days prior to the relevant visa expiring. It's not the end of the world if you're someone who, for example, is listening in and you only have 30 days left. There is, if you can provide extensive motivation as to why something had happened, for example, you fell ill or you weren't able to get out of, or you were in hospital, for example, there is various circumstances where you could maybe overlook this requirement ever so slightly, as long as your visa is still valid at the time.
Yeah.
But the general rule, and as per the requirements, is within or 60 days prior to the expiry of the said visa.
Aadil, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.